I'm here with the man who has written for books like Daredevil, The Losers, Andy Diggle. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. I'm good. I'm having a great time here.
And how are you enjoying the convention so far?
Great. I mean, it seems to be really well organised, and I've been very impressed with it. It's my first time in Chicago, and it's my first time running my own table as well, selling my own books. So, and it's been like really, really upbeat and positive. Everybody's had nothing but good things to say. So yeah, I'm really enjoying it.
How did you first get interested in comics?
I can't remember not reading comics, honestly. I guess I've got two older brothers, so there was often comics in the house, things like like British war comics and the Beano, stuff like that. But really, I'd say it was like 2000 AD, which I started reading when I was 10 years old. That just kind of blew the back of my head off. Like, it's not as big over here, but although it's growing in popularity in the States, but in Britain, 2000 AD is where it's at comics-wise. Like the first year I read 2000 in 1981, you had work by Pat Mills, Kevin O'Neill, Dave Gibbons, John Wagner, Alan Grant, Carlos Esquerra, a lot of these names, who went on to be, huge international comic stars, started off in 2000 AD. It's great.
And when did you start making or writing your own comics?
Well, I got a slightly weird route into the industry because I started off editing first. I sold comics in a bookshop. I studied comics at university, and then when I got out, I worked editorial at 2000 AD, which is kind of a dream job, obviously, for me. I just started off as the office assistant. But I worked my way up until I became the editor. I stayed about 18 months, and then after that I kind of realised that what I really wanted to be doing was writing, rather than sort of helping the other guys to get their stuff out there. So I bailed. I sort of jumped into the freelance life, which is a little scary when you don't have a safety net, but it worked out really well. And I owe a lot to Will Dennis at Vertigo for commissioning my first American work.
Did you have any inspirations from writers or creators?
Yeah, I mean, all the stuff I'd loved as a kid reading 2000, that was a big inspiration to me. John Wagner is my writing hero. I probably wouldn't be in comics now if it wasn't for John Wagner. And working with him was real education. He's a real craftsman. And also other guys have helped me up the ladder. I mean, people like Garth Ennis have put in good words for me with editors when I was starting out. He's got good taste in editors, Garth. So you listen to what he says. There's lots of people who've kind of given me useful advice or pointers along the way. And I try and pay that forward by helping out, guys who are starting out in their careers. By hopefully I can help steer them in the right direction too.
How did you develop your writing style?
Partly by studying comics, not just reading them, but really kind of analysing things like panel count, word count, just trying to figure out exactly how to break it down into its component parts. But also I studied screenwriting as well, and I think that was a big help. People tell me that my comics read very filmically. And it's probably because I learned to write screenplays before I really started studying comics. And I think it shows. I tend to write, I don't use a lot of internal monologue or captions, for example. It's mostly just dialogue and visuals, the same as a movie. It's one of the reasons I like writing short arcs and graphic novels rather than long, ongoing books. I like film structure, the 3-act structure. So I'd rather write 4 short series than 1 long series. You know what I mean? So I can keep the structure intact.
You wrote Shadowland for Marvel. How was it to pretty much break Daredevil, at least for a little while?
Yeah, that was cool. I was really flattered to be offered that job, especially following Ed Brubaker, who's like a kind of hero of mine. But yeah, it was obviously very dark and grim and gritty. But that's because that was the brief we got from Marvel, because I was following on from Ed's story. So we couldn't have a clean break. We had to kind of answer all the questions he'd raised about Matt Murdock taking over the leadership of the Hand and so on. But I think the Shadowland concept came from Marvel. The idea that the Hand would build this castle in the middle of Manhattan. It was a lot of fun doing that. But I think once we got to the end of that, I think everybody they'd had enough of the grim and gritty thing. So for Daredevil Reborn, I wanted to take Matt Murdock out of the city, take him out of the costume, and have like a completely different style. So instead of that kind of very brooding, ominous, dark, noir, urban style we had in the series, for Reborn we wanted to go into wide open spaces, bright lights. So it's under the kind of flat Texas sunshine, to give it a completely different flavour. And I wanted to write that like it wasn't really a superhero book. It's just about a guy who happened to be a superhero. But I'm actually always more interested in these characters when they're out of costume. It's the man underneath the costume that I find the most interesting. So, I'd rather write Matt Murdock stories than Daredevil stories in a weird way.
And what are your thoughts on Mark Waid's run after he picked up from you?
Well, as I say, I think at the end of my run, I think everybody was ready for a change after years of grim and gritty. I mean, obviously Frank Miller, Brian Bendis, Ed Brubaker, and then me. We were all doing this very kind of dark crime noir kind of vibe to it. And it kind of, I think, I don't know what the decisions were behind the scenes, but I suspect they wondered if maybe that had been starting to feel a little bit played out. So I think they wanted to, presumably, I wasn't privy to this, I would assume that they wanted Mark to do something that's a bit more upbeat and a bit more positive and a bit more fun, because like there's only so much pressure you can pile on top of Matt Murdock before it just becomes depressing, frankly. So yeah, but it seems to be very well received. I mean, Mark's a great writer, so it's going down very well as far as I know.
What books are you working on currently?
What books aren't I working on currently? Well, I've walked away from Action Comics, obviously, which is a shame, but that would have been a fun book. But people seem to be responding very well to the first issue of that. I'm doing a crime book called Uncanny for Dynamite, which is this kind of crime noir with a little hint of the supernatural in it. I'm doing Doctor Who for IDW, which is a lot of fun, working with Andy Kuhn. I'm doing Thief of Thieves with Robert Kirkman at Image, which is just a dream book for me. I'm having so much fun writing that. It's great. I've just got my first ever creator-owned series. It's just ending this week with issue 4 of Snapshot, it's drawn by Jock, who's a good friend of mine, who we did The Losers and Green Arrow together. And I've got a couple of other new series in the pipeline, which we're not ready to announce yet, but which again, it's very much in my wheelhouse. It's one of the things I'm doing since ending my exclusives that I've been doing for the past few years. I want to work with as many different publishers as I can and try as many different characters as I can. I'd like to do lots of different short runs on stuff. But I'm just following my gut. Basically, I'm only following projects that are going to be fun. And I'm having a whale of a time.
Well, thank you very much for talking with us, and I wish you all the luck in the world for your future product.
Appreciate it. Thanks, man.